Another week, boys, and another TWAB. This week in Destiny, we've got PvP on our minds. You all seem to enjoy our extensive Sandbox update last week, so we thought we'd offer another in-depth update. Hopefully, you have your reading glasses ready because we have a lot to share. Let's get to it. Topics for this week: PvP Strike Team update, accessibility and console UI updates, Prophecy Dungeon weapons update, what? And NormandyCrew Winners. Now from the PvP Strike Team update. Hey folks, it's the PvP Strike Team here. Today, we'd like to share our thoughts on the current state of PvP, our philosophy, and the changes we have planned. We believe Destiny's PvP gameplay provides players with a unique experience that can stand on its own, but it needs a clear vision alongside ongoing iteration. For some time, the Crucible hasn't felt like it's had that. That has made it difficult for us to attract players to the Crucible, leading to a slow bleed of our PvP population over the last couple of years as veterans move on and are not replaced by fresh players. Wow, that's actually like the first time Bungie has acknowledged that. Okay, now returning to our core mission, we want to refocus on rewarding the players who love the Crucible, as well as push to provide a baseline variety of experiences to ensure there's always something appealing for PvP enjoyers. Since the PvP Strike Team was formed, the bulk of our work has been focused on finding solutions for 5 major issues: Crucible Maps, rewards, game modes, Sandbox issues, and matchmaking. Now, Crucible Maps, obviously a pain point here. Due to its dynamic nature, PvP can create content on its own, and every match can tell a story. But our players have spent millions of Guardian hours on our current selection of maps, playing the same game modes in the same arenas. It feels as though most of these stories have already been told, and there's only so much you can do in the same play spaces. Additionally, different modes require different kinds of maps to succeed, and our limited map selection means we have often pushed modes onto maps where they're not necessarily optimal, resulting in a subpar player experience. Our current crop of maps has not been updated in some time in terms of spawns, ammo crate locations, zones, etc. And this has exacerbated the issue as we continue to add newer modes to older maps. An example would be maps made for Rift being used for Clash and Control, like Disjunction, the Citadel, Convergence, and Cathedral of Dust. Absolutely. To help with this, we've made some substantial quality of life passes on our existing maps. Already live, initial map spawning quality of life pass address spawn traps for Altar of Flame, Cauldron, Endless Veil, Midtown, and Meltdown. Now, update 7.3.5, which will be on March the 5th, which is when everything else is going to roll out. Additional map spawning quality of life passes, addressing spawn traps for Eternity and Fortress, removing all backfill spawns for non-Rift modes, the Citadel, Cathedral of Dust, Disjunction, and Convergence. Now, this will effectively make these maps play 30 to 50% smaller than they do currently, and reduce the amount of time spent running back to the combat after spawning. Yeah, the biggest issue with these maps, guys, is when you die, you literally have to spend, I don't know, I mean, what do y'all think, like 20 seconds to run back to the actual gunfight, right? Now, major tuning of the initial spawning, heavy ammo crate, and tiebreaker zone locations for all maps. We're also making changes to our workflows that will allow us to update the above variables more easily. In the future, we'll be able to more quickly address issues with map imbalance and spawning. For example, the next time Dead Cliffs returns for trials, it will have changes made to the spawns, zones, and heavy ammo placement to make it more balanced. Now, Crucible-focused players may also feel left behind in terms of locations, as they get less exposure to the awesome new destinations that come with our releases. For example, Europa and Neomuna have exciting palettes that our PvP-focused players rarely get to experience. In May, we're releasing new maps that explore these locations. While these maps will be available in Control, they have been specifically built with a focus on 3v3 game modes in mind, including Dominion, Clash, Survival, and our newest mode, Collision. So May update, we're adding 3 new maps to the Crucible. Am I reading this right? We're getting 3 maps, okay? Eventide Labs, Europa, Cirrus Plaza, Neomuna, and Dissonance Terraform Pyramid Ship. Now keep in mind, guys, they're saying it was built with the focus of 3v3 game modes, which has always been Bungie's bread and butter there. Did it take way too long to finally give us some damn maps? Yes, way too damn long, but at least it's coming. I wish we would have got like a tease of it right now. All right, now rewards. We want Crucible to feel at least as rewarding as PvE, with post-game drops on par with Strike activities in terms of rewarding materials and activity-specific loot. We also want PvP players to have more consistent methods of being rewarded with build crafting materials. This has led us to make the following changes, which are currently available in-game. General, already live, increase end-of-match rewards, including more glimmer and higher chance for enhancement cores and Crucible Ingrams, and created double reward boosters for PvP. Competitive, already live, added weapon focusing, and added a second tier to the competitive weekly challenge, and that awards ascended alloys. We're also looking to improve our in-game rewards. While some players may choose to play only a few competitive games per week, we like to reward players who continue to remain active. And competitive will be offering 2 major incentives for continued success throughout the week. Artifice armor in competitive Crucible. The first reward for the first time in Destiny PvP is the addition of Artifice armor in competitive Crucible. This high stat armor will be obtainable as a reward from a new 3rd tier on the competitive division weekly challenge. After completion of the weekly challenge, Artifice armor will continue to have chance to drop on further victories. These Artifice armor pieces are giving the year 1 Crucible gear a new lease on life. The following will have a chance to drop as Artifice armor from competitive Crucible. All right, so we have the different pieces of armor here, but you can, you've got the OG set here, like the Phoenix set there. Okay, guys, this is huge. This is huge. Artifice armor has always been locked to dungeons. As his armor will drop from competitive Crucible, we will keep dungeon Artifice armor drops to the dungeons they are associated with. The inclusion of Artifice armor as a reward aligns with our goal of allowing PvP-focused players to have an in-game track that rivals PvE rewards. Oh, it does. Definitely. Another key change we're adding in update 7.3.5 is the increased drop chance for exotic weapon catalysts on victories. Like Artifice armor, this offers a meaningful way to upgrade a Guardian's power while rewarding continued competitive success. So competitive with update 7.3.5, which will be in March, guys, adding a 3rd tier to the competitive weekly challenge with a new reward of Artifice armor. This tier will be unlocked for all players who reach rank gold 3 or above each season. Okay, so you have to reach gold 3 or above each season to even unlock the chance of getting this Artifice drop. This tier will require match victories instead of completions. Wow. Upon completion of the challenge, each victory thereafter will have a chance to drop Artifice armor, and the drop rates will increase alongside your rank. Dude, this is the get good update. You want Artifice armor, you gotta win, and you gotta get higher rank. Now, competitive matches will also have an increased chance to drop exotic weapon catalysts on victories. So even okay, you could still get exotic weapon catalysts, but you have an increased chance if they're victories. Let me tell you something, guys. I was already a little glazed coming into this. I was thinking there was nothing Bungie was going to say in this TWAB that was really going to excite me for PvP. But Artifice armor? Yeah, I can get down with that, man. Absolutely. To get that perfect armor set going into the final shade? Hell yeah. Now, trials. We want to strike a better balance between the effort versus reward equation for going flawless, while also increasing reward options for players who cannot go flawless. To that end, we recently added flawed card rewards. With update 7.3.5 on March 5th, we'll update the passage of ferocity and add a new passage of persistence. So trials already live, add a 50% chance to get a trials weapon on wins. With update 7.3.5, this will be updated to exclusively drop the weekly weapon reward to better allow for targeted farming of the specific weapon you want. We also added flawed card rewards in update 7.3.5. We're making the following changes to trial passages. For passage of ferocity, if you have not been flawless for the week, losses after 3 wins will reset you back to 3 wins instead of flowing your card. Wait, hold on. Passage of ferocity, if you have not been flawless for the week, losses after 3 wins will reset you back to 3 wins instead of flowing your card. Okay, so that is huge. Now, I know you're probably like, but Cross, wouldn't I just want a mercy to forgive my 2 losses? What this means is if you can just win 3 games, you just shorten that path to go flawless. And every time you do lose after those 3 wins until you go flawless, it will reset back to 3, no losses. So you really only have to get 4 wins. 4 games, fellas, that you got to cook. You got to get the 3 wins first. Now, keep in mind, the first game of every week is always going to be, supposed to be, your easiest game. The other 2 after that, it puts you in the next pool. But then if you could just get the 3, you just have to essentially win 4 more games, and you don't have to restart over or restart things if you get a loss. That's huge. Bro, what's the point of trials then? Here's the thing. This is just for folks that have not been flawless for the week. How many times do you guys go flawless and then continue farming out for the weapon that you're trying to get? You see where I'm coming from? Now, let's continue. With the new passage of persistence, losses following a win will remove the win from your card. Consecutive losses do not remove additional wins. Getting to 7 wins grants you a drop of the weekly adept weapon, regardless of how many losses you have taken. Now, this passage works like a trailing backstop. Once you have at least 1 win recorded on the passage, a loss will remove the most recent win instead of flowing it. Since consecutive losses will not remove additional wins, winning 2 games in a row adds a permanent win to the card, and win streaks longer than 2 add additional permanent wins. You can only go flawless on this passage if you do not have a win removed. Once a win has been removed, you can no longer get flawless using this passage, but you can still earn a roll of the weekly adept weapon. That's the point of going flawless. All right, so the passage of persistence, guys, is essentially, it's literally in the name. Just keep playing. Losses following a win will remove the win from the card, but consecutive losses do not remove those wins. I know you guys are saying, but you can't go to the lighthouse. I get that, but most people are playing for the adept weapon. I know there are other flawless rewards, and yet there's the prestige of going to the lighthouse. But I would argue and say most people are trying to just get the damn adept weapon. You know what I mean? You see cataphract there, you just want to get an adept cataphract. Oh yeah, and you got the memento too. We're also adding rewards for match completions by 3-person fire teams in trials. Although you do not need to win to earn these rewards, they are participation gated. So simply jumping off the map or sitting AFK in the spawn will disqualify you from getting them. Additional 50% chance to drop the non-adept trials weapon weekly weapon reward, a 50% chance to get a trials Ingram drop, and additional trials reputation. Now the goal of these changes is to encourage players to team up with friends, with losses being less of a punishment. Players can have more fun and be well rewarded while doing so. I know there's like some of you that play trials religiously and y'all play every single week and you probably live inside of PvP. But let's be frank, man, PvP has been declining for years. A lot of that due to the fact that Bungie has just not done any changes or given us any updates. I want to see how this plays out. I think that this will incentivize players to jump in there and go for flawless and play in trials. And you know, I think overall the player base is going to be popping in those playlists. And with Artifice armor coming to comp and flawless essentially being achievable by everyone as long as you are persistent enough, I'm down to see it. Zimmers ruin PvP. Cheaters in general ruin PvP, without a doubt. Obviously, Bungie needs to address those, and maybe this gets addressed in this TWAB. Well, hold on. For people saying the flawless situation, keep in mind for the persistent card, you can only go flawless on this passage if you do not have a win removed. Once a win has been removed, you can no longer get flawless using this passage, but you can still earn a roll of the weekly adept weapon. So you still can't get mementos, title, I think the sparrow, the ghost, those other things. So there is still things there that are tied directly to the lighthouse. But you know, for the folks, especially my PvE only players that want that god roll cataphract or whatever else, I think this is great for them. Can you still get flawless with Passage of Ferocity? Yes. Yes, you can. Passage of Ferocity, I mean, that essentially just shortens the requirements there. Once you get to 3 wins, as long as you've got there without getting a loss, boom. You just got to get 4 and keep resetting for that first flawless. We'll see how it plays out. Look, I want to see how it goes. And, you know, the more people you can get playing trials and jumping in that playlist, in my opinion, the better. So I want to see how this plays out. Now, game modes. Right now, competitive modes are not at the bar of quality to best promote an exhibition of skill and mastery between teams. We recently updated the Countdown Rush rule set in competitive and are introducing a new King of the Hill mode called Collision to Crucible Labs in update 7.3.5. The goal is to replace Countdown Rush in competitive playlists after testing. We also feel like our quick play modes are lagging in updates. Even though new modes are being made, they have been either a party mode like Relic or limited time modes like Iron Banner Fortress, Eruption, and Tribute. Outside of those, players have had the same options for too long. We want to make new core modes available to the standardized playlists and private matches. We also want to experiment with interesting twists on Destiny's PvP that still retain the core feeling of our gameplay without being limited time events. So already live, we have created Sparrow Control, we played this past week. It's all right. Added 3v3 Clash to Crucible Labs. Updated the Countdown Rush rule set for competitive. Now, update 7.3.5, the Clash will be moving to the 3v3 quick play rotator, and we'll be making these updates to the rules. Heavy ammo will no longer be shared. Respawn timer increased from 5 to 7 seconds. Match timer increased to 10 minutes, but the score to win remains 40. Now, a new 3v3 King of the Hill mode Collision will enter the Crucible Labs. A single, larger zone will rotate between 5 points around the map on a timer. Capturing and controlling it will earn your team points. This mode will also test an alternative special ammo crate system. The special ammo crate system will feature 4 shareable special ammo crates that spawn simultaneously at the beginning of the game or round and then on a timer afterwards. So literally like D1 here. Now, each control zone location, A, B, and C, will have an associated special ammo crate, and the 4th crate will be in a neutral location. Players who currently have special ammo will drop special ammo bricks on death. Well, okay, that's like completely separate from what we were talking about with Checkmate. It's gonna be like Bubble Titans all over the place on the King of the Hill mode there. Now, it's our goal to polish and refine both new special ammo acquisition systems, ammo meter, and ammo crates. They then can be utilized along with the respawn ammo system, and we can pick the ammo acquisition system that works best for each mode. Oh, okay. So the changes they went over last week, Checkmate and all that stuff, like a lot of those are going to be standardized, but as far as special ammo goes, this is going to change depending on the game mode. Now, Iron Banner Tribute has undergone on multiple changes, including simplifying objectives and scoring, including changing the trigger for the hunt from depositing max crests to a team score threshold, removing the wall hacks on players carrying max crests, cleaning up the user experience by decreasing the distance at which crest icons can be seen. We're also reworking how quickly the beacons despawn and rotate, and significantly decreasing the time it takes to interact with dump crests, and reducing the number of turrets that spawn with the hunt beacon from 4 to 3. Now, update 7.3.6, Checkmate will be back in Crucible Labs, returning in a form closer to its original iteration. 30% penalty on ability cooldowns. No starting special ammo. Melee damage will not be increased, so it will take 3 base melees to kill. Primary weapon optimal time to kills will be shifted to allow for a more tactical sandbox, in line with the original goal of Checkmate as a modifier. And a new modifier, hardware will be tested in labs. It's no abilities, only weapons. Grab special and heavy ammo from crates located around the map and get to shooting. Wow. No abilities, no supers, no nothing, guys. Just weapons. I like the name there. It's hardware. All right, keep in mind what we went over last week about the standardized health pools inside of Crucible. That's universal, okay? But Checkmate will still be a modifier that Bungie will still rotate into Crucible Labs, and you know, the 30%, the big major cooldowns and ability, the melee's taking 3 and stuff like that. I'm excited to try out hardware there. Look, everyone says they wish Destiny and PvP was no abilities and was just weapons. We'll see about that. We'll see if everyone really loves it. I may end up loving it, but I think kind of the thing that makes Destiny is the combination of abilities and supers and all that good stuff. I think that's what makes it fun, but we'll see how this plays out. Now, the final shape. Private matches will have more options for players to set per mode. Modifiers such as Mayhem or Scorch will be options in any game mode. Play custom matches with your clanmates and friends, or leverage Fireteam Finder. We have also added more custom tuning for existing game modes, so you have better control over things like special ammo delivery, ability cooldowns, reviving, respawning, and more. All right, look, overall, man, I'm liking everything I'm seeing, guys. Now, Sandbox Issues, addressing problems across the skill curve. For a longer explanation of the Sandbox changes we are making, please see last week's tweet, but here's a short recap. As the average skill of our players has crept up over the years, the weapon sandbox has not grown alongside it. This has led to a compression of the skill gap at high levels of play, along with making it very difficult for new players to find their footing in a game where many veteran players have nearly mastered the existing playstyles. As we've increased the strength and prevalence of certain sandbox elements, too often the defeated players in PvP can't understand what killed them or why. We don't want players in situations where it's difficult to learn what to do better next time. We also want to provide more encouragement for players to master their primary gun skills. Things like high body shot damage, generous assist on precision weapons, substantial flinch dealt with primary weapons, and low critical hit requirements for optimal or near optimal time to kills all currently contribute to the feeling that putting in time and effort to improve your skill with primary weapons is oftentimes not worth it. At higher levels, hitting optimal time to kill is not an expression of mastery of the weapons, and it is instead merely an expectation. Meanwhile, at lower levels, players can still die quickly to a relatively inaccurate opponent. These problems at their core are all related to a series of linked issues. We have certain ability builds with either high uptime or higher potency than we believe is healthy. We provided a near constant availability of special ammo, which means there's always a surplus of one-shot kill weapons on the field. We have made primary weapons highly lethal, fast killing, and in general, also very forgiving. This all leads to a high percentage of deaths in our sandbox. From the target's perspective, it feels like there's nothing they could have done differently. Many of the above are reflected through powerful sandbox elements that either have high rewards without appropriately punishing suboptimal play to offset the risk. For example, bow and sniper aim assist, or submachine guns and hand cannon body shot damage. Or they overstep rewarding the user and extend to punishing the target. For example, explosive payload, hand cannon flinch, or Wishender's true sight. Update 7.3.5. The Crucible Sandbox is getting a significant shakeup to increase battlefield readability and understanding. We're also adjusting the weapon sandbox to encourage primary weapon mastery and reduce the prevalence of high reward, low risk weapon playstyles. The following are Crucible specific changes. Player health, base HP increasing by 30 from 70 to 100. Went over that last week. Abilities, grenade melee class ability cooldowns increasing 15%. Melee damage increasing 16%. This is just to maintain the 2 melee kills. Super cooldown increasing 20%, and super damage increasing 31%. Wow. Okay. Now, primary weapon balance, bow damage decreasing 15%. All other primary weapon critical hit damage increasing by between 10 and 14%, depending on the archetype, to maintain the same optimal time to kill as the current sandbox. Now, decreasing hand cannon and submachine gun body shot damage by 5% and 3% respectively. So again, more emphasis on crits. Now, special ammo. Special ammo, after initial spawn will be earned through kills or the completion of objectives. The goal is not to force players to utilize the double primary playstyle, but to encourage smart and measured special ammo usage, also increasing the damage of short and mid-range special ammo weapons like shotguns, trace rifles, fusion rifles, and glade projectiles by 20%. Again, don't be alarmed by this, guys. This is just to maintain one-hit kills from these weapons because of the higher health pool. Now, specific balance change highlights: limiting the uptime of Wishner's true sight ability, reducing sniper rifle aim assist, reducing the flinch dealt to players by handguns, slowing down the activation speed of target lock on submachine guns only, reducing threaded spectre uptime in PvP, reducing threadling damage to players, and threadlings will be easier to destroy, reducing fighting lion and devil's ruin beam damage versus players. Now, the final shape: we're working on changes to reduce the dominance of Ward of Dawn and Well of Radiance. We also want to improve the viability of supers with longer recharge times in objective game modes. We'll have more to share on this as we get closer to the release of the final shape. Now, after the final shape, we're also exploring UI updates, the obituary screen that would show the combination of players that killed you rather than just who dealt the final blow. All right, matchmaking details. We have a lot to cover for matchmaking, so let's do a quick rundown of the changes we've made and what we have planned before getting into the full details. Already live: replace the loose skill-based matchmaking in our banner and control with the new Outlier Protection matchmaking system. Updated competitive matchmaking to be ranked based, and currently testing several different configurations of new snake draft lobby balancer. Now, update 7.3.5, we will be updating our playlist tooltips to correctly display which matchmaking style is used for each mode. We have several changes planned for our ongoing experimentation with the snake draft lobby balancing, aimed at improving how it handles fire teams. Now, our matchmaking systems are opaque and not easily understood, and it's not clearly defined when and where they are in use. Matchmaking is extremely complex and always a big challenge due to different types of players desiring different gameplay experiences. Well, I say universally, most people don't like to get shit on, but it happens. Some high-level players want close, competitive games against worthy opponents. Actually, we do. While some want to be able to show off their skills against the wider boundaries of the population's bell curve. New and casual players, if they aren't presented with a place where they can develop consistency, are prevented from building their skills and can be discouraged from continuing to explore the Crucible. The only real solution is to provide separate systems and experiences for each type of player within the Crucible. Now, let me make a point here on that. It's not that I want to be sweating my balls off every match, but I also don't want to be mercing the other team. Like, nothing sucks worse than having your squad completely demolish the other squad in like 2.5 minutes and you're right back to orbit. You know what I mean? Now, our previous implementation of skill-based and fireteam-based matchmaking made it more difficult to enjoy playing with friends, adding too much friction to the experience. This made it tough for us to uphold our pillar value that Destiny is better to play with friends. We want to ease the friction by making it easier for players to enjoy Crucible with friends. At the same time, we don't want to just feed solo players to more organized fire teams, effectively as cannon fodder. Lobby balancing in general has consistently been a pain point, with a particular emphasis on the practice of placing high skill and low skill players on a team against a large number of average to above average players. Since the PvP strike team was assembled, we have been making substantial changes to our matchmaking systems, but we haven't really had an opportunity to clarify how the system works or what specifically we have been changing. Before we talk about our solutions to the above problems, let's first talk about a few things our matchmaking system does not do to help clear up some misconceptions. Our matchmaking systems do not individually force players to a 1.0 kill death ratio or a 50% win ratio. Okay, so they're addressing some of the things that people have been saying for years now. Intentionally allow players to dominate for a few games, then place them into games where they get destroyed. Sacrifice connection quality for skill or any other filter. Our three most common matchmaking systems, Outlier Protection, Rank Base, and Open Skill, all keep average connection quality generally within the same bounds. In fact, Outlier Protection and Rank Base have, on average, slightly better connection quality than Open Skill due to the increased time that remain in the optimum connection bracket while searching for matches. So now that we've gone over what they don't do, how exactly do the different matchmaking systems work? To understand that, we must first talk about skill and skill deltas. In our game, the range of player skills is measured from -1000 to 1000, and the feel of a match can often be determined by the overall skill delta, which is the difference in skill between the highest and lowest players in the game. Game with deltas of less than 500 will generally feel competitive, with fewer or no players outclassed, though there will be a difference in performance between the highest and lowest players. Colloquially, we can refer to this as the sweat zone. With deltas greater than 500 and less than 1000, there will be a noticeable skill variance present, usually enough to avoid games from feeling too sweaty. Some players will be outclassed, but it's unlikely there will be people in the match who are completely in over their heads. For well-populated and unranked game modes like Control and Iron Banner, we consider this to be the Goldilocks zone, where games can present varied experiences without becoming stomping grounds. Now, deltas larger than 1000, there will be likely be one or more players who get few or no kills the entire game. game while contributing double-digit deaths. We can refer to this as the stomp zone. These experiences result in some of the largest negative sentiment spikes we've seen in our game and are heavy drivers for player departures. With that information in mind, let's talk about our specific matchmaking strategies. Ranked-based matchmaking. Used in the competitive playlist, ranked-based matchmaking matches based on skill only in placement matches before you have been ranked. Once you've been ranked, your current rank is converted to a value we can use in place of skill in a range between -1,000 and 1,000, and you are matched based on that. For example, if you are in Gold 2, it tries to find you other Gold 2 players. If it cannot, it will expand to look within the neighboring minor ranks, in this case, Gold 3 and Gold 1. That makes logical sense. If there are no available players after a given amount of time, the matchmaking will continue to expand through the minor ranks until it reaches a maximum of just beyond one major rank up and down. The only exception to this maximum bracket is if you are in Ascendant 2 or Ascendant 1, where there are not always enough players to match in such narrow bands. These players can be considered Ascendant 3 for matchmaking purposes, helping to prevent extremely long queue times. Now, following placements, you will never be matched based solely on skill. The only time skill will come into matchmaking at all is as part of our match quality standards to combat smurfing. This affects a small number of players whose skill is dramatically higher than that of their rank, and in these cases, it will blend the rank and skill of these players and match them between the two values. This prevents players from being able to throw placement matches or derank to match against much less skilled players, ensuring we do not have extreme skill outliers in lobbies. You make a new account, you suddenly get on and you're popping off with a 7 KD. Bungie's gonna pick up on that and put you where they think you should be. In our most recent pool of rank-based matching stats, here were the numbers. 67% of rank-based matches started with converted rank deltas of less than 300, with all players with 3 minor ranks, for example, Gold 3 to Gold 1. 26% of rank-based matches started with converted rank deltas of more than 300 and less than 500, with all players within 5 minor ranks. For example, Silver 1 to Plat 3. 4% of rank-based matches started with converted rank deltas of more than 500 and less than 600, with all players within about 2 major ranks. At the standard maximum allowed rank brackets, most of these matches occurred in low population regions or during off-peak hours. And 3% of rank-based matches started with converted rank deltas of greater than 600. Again, they're trying to stay away from that stomping ground, if you will. Now, these matches should only occur when a lower ranked player is in a fire team with a higher ranked player, or when a high skill player is playing at a much lower rank. Now, open skill matchmaking, also known as connection-based matchmaking. This type of matchmaking is used in our quick play playlists, Crucible Maps, Rumble, and the Trials Challenger pool. It's designed to find you a game as quickly as possible, with the only limitation being connection quality. The skill bracket starts fully expanding to the widest possible values. If there are not enough players to fill a match, it will wait a while and then slowly expand the connection quality filters. Here are the number from our most recent pool of open skill matchmaking stats. 2% of open skill matches start with skill deltas of less than 500. 52% of open skill matches start with skill deltas of more than 500 and less than 1,000. And 46% of open skill matches start with skill deltas of more than 1,000. All right. I hope you know where they're going with this. I know I'm reading for a really long time, and believe me, fellas, it's like, get to the point. Again, Bungie is finesse. Right now, they've rubbed your butthole, and now they're about to give us the real shit. All right, and it's coming. We see the question a lot. Why can't all the non-competitive playlists just use open skill? Having all of them previously run matchmaking with no skill restrictions made the PvP experience worse for our newer, more casual players, to the extent that we added some form of skill-based matchmaking to our Control and Iron Banner playlists. We saw a significant increase in playtime and retention from those groups of players. Keeping new and casual players engaged with our Crucible ecosystem is critical for the population to avoid stagnation or deflation, and for it to stay healthy for players of all skill levels in the long term. Even Guardian Game Supremacy, which is often referred to as an example of successful open skill playlists, was by the end of its second week consistently hitting a lower percentage of daily active players than the Control playlist average in the following months, which at the time had an initial iteration of loose skill-based matchmaking. Now here we go. Loose skill-based matchmaking. This was our first attempt at a loose skill-based matchmaking system for more casual play. It's been deprecated, but we will still discuss how it works for comparison purposes. It worked much the same way as our rank-based matchmaking from competitive, but with raw skill values in place of the converted rank and wider initial brackets that could expand to the maximum limits instead of being kept within boundaries. The initial bracket was 4 times as wide as the rank-based one. So if we use ranks as an example, it would be like a Gold 1 player looking for other players from Gold 3 to Platinum 2. If there were not enough people to make a game, the bracket would gradually expand all the way out to maximum edges of the skill curve, while you get people like an Ascendant playing gold. Now here's some sample stats from loose skill-based matchmaking in Season 22. 51% of matches started with skill deltas of less than 500. 45% of matches started with skill deltas of more than 500 and less than 1,000. And 4% of matches started with skill deltas of more than 1,000. Although this matchmaking did a good job of matching players together based on skill, it had an outsized negative effect on our highest skilled players and the players they teamed up with. They experienced increased queue times and matches that felt more akin to ranked playlists than Control or Iron Banner. Woo! My lord, this is a research paper. I need some water. All right, we're getting to it. Don't worry, guys. It's going to be the best ever. Outlier Protection. Used in our unranked playlist, Iron Banner and Control. Since the beginning of Season 23, Outlier Protection takes a different approach to matchmaking. Instead of trying to match you with people who are at or very near your skill level, we simply consider anyone who has more than 1,000 skill from someone else in a match to be an outlier. Our core goal is to try to reasonably prevent these outliers by keeping the skill deltas in our matches below 1,000 when possible, or as close to 1,000 as we can. Using ranks, for example, players in Platinum 3 could initially match everyone from Silver through Adept, and they're only kept away from players who are at the far end of the skill spectrum, that being Bronze, Copper, and Ascendant. If it's unable to find a match within that window, the matchmaking will wait for a period and then gradually reduce the outlier protection to allow more players into the bracket until it is expanded to the maximum edges of the skill curve. Here's some typical recent examples of outlier protection stats. 25% of matches started with skill deltas of less than 500. 65% of matches started with skill deltas of more than 500 and less than 1,000. And 10% of matches started with skill deltas of more than 1,000. Now, this system has allowed us to retain many of the benefits that loose skill-based matchmaking can offer for newer and lower skill players, without the drawbacks of making above average skill players feel like they are playing in something closer to a ranked mode. In fact, we have even seen an increase in matches taking place within the Goldilocks zone, without too many matches falling into either the sweat zone, like the loose skill-based matchmaking, or the stomp zone, like the open skill-based matchmaking. Now, this system also improves the experience when playing with friends of various skills. It utilizes a weighted average of Fireteam skills to find the center point from which to matchmake, and the number of players excluded from the initial bracket is much smaller than it was with loose skill-based matchmaking. This makes the shift between playing solo and playing with higher skill friends or clanmates much less dramatic, so it's more enjoyable to party up. And this takes us to Fireteam-based matchmaking. Let's talk about this in trials specifically. We understand that the experience for full fire teams has suffered as the difficulty has increased with Fireteam-based matchmaking, but the solution is not as simple as it may initially appear. The two common suggestions for how to solve the issues with trials and this kind of matchmaking are: make it so only trios can queue, make it so duos cannot queue, or they can queue, but they're not protected from trios. Both styles of matchmaking have been used before and contributed to previous deteriorations of the trials ecosystem. Before we allowed non-trio fire teams into trials, participation was at an all-time low. If we were to revert to only allowing trios to queue, the available population would decrease substantially. Most players would not mainly find other players to group up with, and the overall population would likely decrease by 30% or more overnight. As the population would contribute to decrease, skill creep would eat away at the number of three-person fire teams that can compete. And eventually, the trio's experience would feel much the same as it does now, except players would not have the solo or duo experiences to fall back on. Similarly, after we allowed non-trio fire teams into trials, but before Fireteam-based matchmaking, solo and duo participation peaked and then steadily decreased to minimum values outside of freelance weekends. These dedicated weekends spiked the population back up, but it always fell off following the reversions back to the standard unprotected matchmaking. Ironically, if we were to prohibit duos from queuing, or if we did not protect them from trios, we would end up with an experience much like what occurred during the previous freelance weekends. This, again, does not actually benefit trios at all. The trio population would increase slightly as a small percentage of duos moved upwards, but those are generally going to be players of above average skill. The rest of the duos would now choose to play solo instead. This would make playing solo by far the best way to play trials, and the trio population would eventually dry up again. With the current iteration, trios still have the highest flawless percentage of any fireteam configuration, and duos exist for people who want to play with a single friend, but who cannot or do not wish to play as a trio. If we made duos no longer an option, the best experience for most players would become playing alone, which is the worst solution. Instead of altering matchmaking, we need to focus on making the trio experience more enjoyable and encourage players to participate by rewarding them, as mentioned previously in the reward section. To recap how we're starting things off, we've modified the passage of ferocity and added a new passage of persistence to make getting a first flawless more attainable, and allow players who cannot get flawless to still earn adept weapons. And players who play as part of a 3-person fire team will be given additional rewards on match completions, including an additional 50% chance to drop the non-adept trials weapon reward and a 50% chance to drop a trials engram and additional trials reputation. Okay, so if you happen to be playing on a 3-person fire team, you will get additional rewards. Here's the thing, guys. We were talking about this last weekend. What do? You know what I mean? You can't screw the duo players. You can't screw the solo players by just rewarding the 3-man fire teams. You got to keep it as it is, pretty much, man. And personally, I like being able to load up as a solo player and still have a pretty good time in trials. I don't want to see that diminish. Now, lobby balancing. We understand that lobby balancing is currently a pain point. Some complaints about matchmaking can be more accurately attributed to lobby balancing, as it can make games feel unfair for one or both teams when players are improperly sorted. Because lobby balancing can have such an outsized effect on how games feel, it is very important to us that we make sure we get it right before fully moving to a new system. The original lobby balancer is simply trying to make the average overall skill of both teams as close as possible. And while it might not seem like it, there are several things that could cause lobby balance to deteriorate to an even lower quality. As such, we're still testing and gathering data, but we will share details with you as soon as possible. So changes already live. Replace the loose skill-based matchmaking in Iron Banner and Control with the new Outlier Protection matchmaking system, as I mentioned above. Updated competitive matchmaking to be ranked-based, update 7.3.5. We'll also cap the win and loss min-max values to make them less variable, which should make point rewards more predictable. Currently testing several different configurations of a new snake draft lobby balancer. Now, update 7.3.5 on March the 5th. We'll be updating our playlist tooltips to correctly display which matchmaking style is used for each mode. Oh, we have several changes planned for our ongoing experimentations with snake draft lobby balancing, aimed at improving how it handles fire teams. As you can see, we have a lot of changes coming to PvP over the next few months, including a few changes planned for the final shape and beyond. We'll have more details about those updates as we get closer to their release. As always, we appreciate all the feedback we received, and we'll continue to monitor discussion around these changes as we iterate and update to reach our goals. All right, how do you feel, guys? Let's just get the big things out of the way. Artifice armor and calm, hell yeah. Potentially more people playing trials, because trials is essentially, it is becoming easier. I think is a win. Again, it's only for the first flawless, guys. New maps, please be good new maps. Hell yeah. Why didn't they say anything about cheaters? Supposedly there was a ban wave here recently, but I don't know. Do they mention cheaters at all? I don't know if they're going to mention cheaters at all, but Bungie, you're going to have to take a stance on especially third-party hardware such as Zim and Cronus. You're going to have to take that stance. And you're going to have to find a way to detect that and ban those people that do use those things, because it is cheating. Accessibility and console UI updates. To continue to prioritize accessibility and improve the console experience, we have a few long overdue quality of life UI changes that we'll be introducing in update 7.3.5. We added the reticle location setting to console center or below center. Okay. For my console users, if you want to know the difference, PC is centered, and then console, you guys sit like a little under center. So I prefer center myself, but teach your own. Sometimes we would actually do the console reticle setting depending on the weapon we were using. Maybe I needed more field of view. I needed more vertical space. So I would sometimes change it. But overall, I normally like center more. Now, players can change the location of the reticle regardless of the platform in the gameplay setting menu. When a PC player changes the reticle location setting, it does not change the reticle location setting on console and vice versa. So added controller dead zone settings. Oh, okay. With the ability to adjust dead zone values, players can dial in movement settings that feels just right for their playstyle for a more enjoyable play session. Players can change their radio and axial controller dead zone values from the controller setting menu, and added the ability to adjust the opacity of the radar background. Oh, wow. Okay. Players can now increase the opacity of the radar background to allow for more contrast between the radar elements and the content behind it. We also are doing a last minute update where anyone who uses a Cronus or a Zim while playing Destiny 2 will result in their cocks falling straight off. This will roll out March the 5th. Prophecy dungeon weapon updates. And update 7.3.5 will be updating the weapons pool in the Prophecy Dungeon. This will include swapping out 3 weapons and making some key updates to the other existing weapons, removing a Swift Verdict sidearm, the Long Walk sniper rifle, and the Last Breath auto rifle. Okay. New origin trait. All the new and updated weapons below will also be given the new origin trait. Crossing over. These weapons have increased range and handling for the top half of the magazine, while rounds from the bottom half of the magazine deal increased damage. Adding. These weapons will be receiving all new perk pulls and in some cases, new damage types. The Prosecutor auto rifle, primary, precision frame, arc, origin trait gonna have crossing over. Hell yeah. Adjudicator also gonna be getting relentless. Oh my god, dude, relentless is gonna be nuts. So this origin trait right here, that's increased range and handling. It reminds me of the perk from D1. Y'all remember that? It was like the deeper you got in the magazine, the more damage it would do. I wonder how much it's gonna increase the damage. But yes, Prosecutor, Adjudicator, Relentless, those Trials of the 9 weapons, they're back. Now updated, these weapons are receiving new perk pools and new damage types. Judgment Hand Cannon, damage changed from kinetic to stasis. Also getting the origin trait. Wow. Darkest Before, primary, rapid fire frame, damage changed from arc to solar. Okay. A sudden death shotgun, special aggressive frame, damage changed from arc to void. Interesting. Now updated encounter drops, Phalanx Echo, Relentless Pulse Rifle, Prosecutor Auto Rifle, the Cube, a sudden death shotgun, Adjudicator submachine gun, Kel Echo, awards at the emissary chest, Judgment Hand Cannon, Darkest Before Pulse Rifle. All right. I wonder why they change like Judgment Hand Cannon going from a kinetic to stasis. Obviously for synergy there. Maybe they're giving Darkest Before incandescent because they're making it solar, and maybe Sun and Death's gonna get destabilizing rounds. What does it come from? The Prophecy Dungeon, guys. This will be dropping from the Prophecy Dungeon, everyone. I know it's probably been years. There's already 1 million arc pulse rifles. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, I was curious more than anything. And with Judgment also being a stasis weapon, I'm sure it's gonna have things like Headstone. When is this happening? This is the March update, guys. The March update is looking beefy, fellas. Looking beefy. Again, for those that are wondering, why are we getting this in March? Keep in mind, what has happened is a lot of these changes were things that were going to go through with the final shape at launch. They're still rolling through with those changes. March 5th actually makes sense because it would have been right after the final shape and probably around the same time the episode's launching. So we're essentially getting these episode sandbox changes. So the March update is looking big. All right, beautiful. These are your NormandyCrew winners. Oh, look at them. Look at them. Sexy. Known issues, of which I'm not going to read because I've already read way too much today. But Hypothesis Veil does not always trigger when using Well of Radiance. That's an important thing to know. Overload artifact mods inadvertently affect ignition damage. Wait. This is going to be a nerf, actually. That's going to affect Dragon's Breath. But no. There's a lot more. Bungie, what you really need to say is that ignition damage is really messed up. And we have a lot of stuff we got to do to it to get it right. All right. As a final note here from Bungie this week, that's everything we have this week. There are a lot of exciting changes in the works. Take time to digest everything we went over and let us know what you think. We'll be checking out feedback and looking to answer any follow-up questions throughout the week. We'll be back next week sharing everything you can expect from the upcoming Guardian games. Until then, be good to each other, and thanks for hanging out with us, the Destiny 2 community team. Guys, the March update, again, this is supposed to have been the final shape updates, right? This would have been the final shape sandbox update that would have rolled out, not everything, but a lot of this stuff would have rolled out with the first episode of the final shape. And we're getting all this right now. And that makes sense because the game kind of works. I mean, you've got the narrative team and they're doing their thing, but the game itself is still a live game. You still have to roll out. They still have a timetable they have to hit in terms of sandbox changes and whatnot. And so they're still coming out with these things. March update is looking sexy. So I'm excited. We'll see how everything plays out.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.